back in 2008 at the State House. I hadn't been living in the area all that long, but Senator Mark Cody had called me to ask me some questions about possibly introducing for the first time a bill that would require use of E-Verify in the state of Rhode Island. And it was one of the very first universal mandatory E-Verify bills that had ever been introduced anywhere in the country, based on some other successful models in other states. And he asked me to come down and testify at the first hearing. And I've been working on state and local legislation for a while now, for a couple of years. I testified in other parts of New England, in Massachusetts, and Vermont, and New Hampshire. And I was used to being one of like 3 people or something who would show up and give their thing, and you know, nobody would be there really except for the legislators and large numbers of people on the other side who were usually wearing t-shirts that said things like, "No human being is illegal," and Mary and Joseph were illegal aliens, and you know, we need amnesty now, and stuff like that. That was usually the crowd that was there to hear me testify. So I get into the State House in Providence, and I'm seeing all these people. I walk up to the hearing room, and there are all these people around. I'm thinking, well, there must be something like a public officials like bill that brings all these people to testify or something. I'm looking around, what are all these people here for this immigration hearing? And then this guy with a great tan comes up to me. He says, "Are you Jessica? I'm Terry Gorman." I was like, "Oh, we talked on the phone." I said, "There's a ton of people here, He said, "Yeah, they're all RIILE members." And I looked around, I was like, "Yeah, they're wearing flag pins, and they're, no human being is illegal t-shirts, or anybody that's going to throw something at me for testifying." And it was so gratifying and inspiring to see how many people came to have their voices heard. And I know it's been frustrating over these 4 years that that bill has been coming up every single year. But as Terry said, you really are making a huge difference, because imagine if you weren't there, what mischief would be going on in that building. And people have taken note of this around the country too, believe it or not. A couple days ago in Washington, Representative Lamar Smith, who is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and a longtime supporter of the kind of immigration reform that we would like to see, that gives first concern to the national interest rather than special interests, he introduced the other day a bill that would make E-Verify mandatory for all employers in the United States. A lot of us think that there really is, for the first time, these bills have been introduced before, but never when people who believed in immigration law enforcement were in the majority in the House of Representatives. So we think that this bill stands a huge chance of being voted, certainly will be voted on, and stands a very large likelihood of success. And I think you all can, I really have no doubt that all of the work that has been done here in Rhode Island has contributed to where we are now, and the fact that this kind of bill can be introduced at the federal level. Because first of all, the bill in Rhode Island was a bipartisan bill, and it enjoyed broad support. We all know that it hasn't passed because it lacks support. But it hasn't passed because there are a couple of people who don't like it. But there has been broad bipartisan sponsorship of it that has been noticed, and the same is true of this bill that Lamar Smith has introduced. But also because Governor Carcieri, or former Governor Carcieri, had the executive order that road tested a mandatory E-Verify program, making state agencies and contractors and vendors use the program, and the sky didn't fall over Rhode Island. Employers found out that they like the program, that it works, that it helps them avoid hiring illegal aliens. And as Terry alluded to, before this happened, we all heard that there were going to be thousands of U.S. citizens who were erroneously denied work because of E-Verify, and that there would be all this discrimination that would occur. And none of that has happened here. Around the country, you probably can't find 3 cases of where this has happened. So it's been road tested and proven that this is a solution. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the answer to all our immigration problems, but it's doable, it works, and it's something that will help. And it stands a chance of being passed now. Of course, Governor Chafee decided to rescind the governor's order, but I found out something the other day, is that there are now, today, this is DHS gave me these numbers, today there are more companies using E-Verify in Rhode Island than there were when he rescinded that executive order. Really? Wow. He hasn't stopped. The program works, and that's amazing. Also importantly is that this bill at the federal level is now endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce and a number of other associations of employers who are notorious for hiring illegal workers. And they stepped up and endorsed the bill for a couple of reasons, we think, and one of them is because they saw that this was going to happen state by state around the country. And at least, you know, Rhode Island was one of the first to start to consider it, one of the first to do it by executive order. But the dominoes started to fall, and so they realized that they would much rather have a national program with a level playing field across the whole country than to have to worry about, you know, all these different state laws in place. So that is huge too. I mean, to have, I mean, really now the only major interest groups that are going to be opposed to E-Verify are the groups that are always opposed to immigration law enforcement. You know, I mean, we're going to hear the usual suspects come out, and I mean, they've all been in Providence as well with their local chapters arguing against E-Verify. But they're really much more isolated and marginalized now than ever before. And it's really, for the first time in a long time, really have a lot of hope that we may actually get somewhere in the next couple of years on this issue. Not that there aren't other things that we still need to do, such as more fencing would probably be helpful. My organization every year gives an award to a journalist who we think has had the best immigration coverage that kind of rises above the usual standard sob stories about how difficult it is to be an illegal alien and stuff like that. And this year we gave an award to a guy by the name of Leo Banks, who's a reporter out of Tucson, Arizona, and works for a small paper out there and has been covering what life is like for our fellow citizens who live in that part of the country, which is now where more than half of all illegal aliens who come by land come through. And I would encourage any of you who are interested in this aspect of the immigration problem, take a look at our website, which is www.cis.org, and we have a video tape of his speech that he gave a couple of weekends ago in Washington. It's about 13 minutes long, but it's really something to listen to what these people are going through. I mean, essentially, the drug and human smuggling organizations that are run by the Mexican cartels have opened forward operating bases in our wilderness there and control a part of our country that our fellow citizens live in under conditions that you just can't believe. And the wildfires that are going on down there now, everybody knows, were almost certainly started by either illegal aliens or the smuggling organizations that are bringing them in. And you'll come away from his talk thinking, you know, we're fighting overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and working, you know, there to defend those places, and yet we've left our own citizens in the lurch in this part of our country and actually given up some of our territory to cross-border criminal organizations. And it's a shame, and more people need to hear the story, and more needs to be done about it. The border is not more secure than it was before. We still have huge gaping holes that need to be addressed. We need to have an exit system. We need to clean up our immigration court system. We need to finish secure communities. A lot of things left to be done. And so your voices are still very much needed, both to support the E-Verify bill and for all the other work that needs to be done to restore some sanity to our immigration policy. And I hope you'll stick with it for another 5 years at least. That's what it's going to take. Because, you know, even if we get this bill passed and it makes it through the Senate, it doesn't have a lot of strict enforcement measures in it to make sure that employers are doing their due diligence and actually signing up for E-Verify. And Raise your hand if you trust the Obama administration to enforce a law that's passed by Congress on illegal immigration. I'm not seeing any hands, come on. Which brings me to the next point, which is that it is still very important that we keep after our state governments and local governments to do the right thing. Whether it's on E-Verify, we still need them to implement mandatory E-Verify programs at the state and local level for this very reason, that there aren't going to be a lot of enforcement mechanisms in this bill. And because illegal immigration today is not this kind of benign phenomenon, but really a form of organized crime that requires a law enforcement response and that has real public safety implications in our communities, we still depend very much on our local law enforcement agencies to be doing the right thing in terms of requiring identification of people, not looking the other way at immigration violations, and cooperating with federal agencies when they encounter people through their law enforcement work that happen to be foreign nationals or illegal aliens. And we've got to keep after our state and local governments to make sure that those policies are in place to keep us all safe. So, again, thank you so much, and I'm so delighted to see you all here. And that's the main thing. That's the main reason why RIILE is so successful, is because you all show up, and you've been a huge inspiration to me in my work, and I hope you'll keep it up. So, thank you, Terry. And thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate the kind words also. I'd like to mention a couple of other things before the next speaker. I don't know if anybody saw the gentleman walking around the room earlier. He could only stay for a few minutes. He came to extend his support and best wishes and to make a donation, which I told him that was the most important part. He didn't have to go. But it just so happened it was the mayor of North Providence, Charlie Vaughn. There's another really big bonus involved in that, and people don't realize it, but Charlie happens to be about 4 inches shorter than I am. So, as long as I can stay in Charlie's company, I feel pretty good. But the second thing is I got a call this afternoon, and I said, hello. They said, do you know who this is? I said, no, I don't. She said, it's Mrs. Kacheri. She didn't say Mrs. Kacheri. She said, it's Sue Kacheri. I said, oh my goodness. She said, we're not going to be able to make it to your time tonight. We're going to send a donation though. And she said, but we want you to announce tonight how much the governor and myself support what you do, what you and RIILE do on a daily basis. So, that was another thing that made my day today, besides this turnout. Our next speaker really doesn't need any introduction.